to the Victorian Department of Premier and Cabinet. Today I will be talking about people with disabilities as victims of the criminal justice system. People with cognitive impairments, disabilities, and mental health issues have had long-standing conflict with the police, the Victorian Department being no exception. Though not always victims of crime, and instead they could be alleged perpetrators, certain factors such as lack of police awareness, education, and stigma have resulted in the disabled community being severely disadvantaged by the criminal justice system. Because of this, I believe policies and training for authorities should continue to be implemented so that disabled community are not subsequently sufferers of the justice system simply because they process instruction differently and because people struggle to understand them and their needs. So the background. Here are some statistics to start us off. People with disabilities are more likely to receive a term of imprisonment compared to the general population and are therefore considerably overrepresented in prisons. That is by Oberholzer 2017. Additionally, according to the Australian Institute of Health and Welfare, almost half of prison entrants report having been told by a health professional they have a mental health disorder, while 30% of entrants report long-term health conditions that disable them from participating in daily activities. So, why is this the case? Both of these factors could be attributed to the lack of proper funding for community-based support groups and services available for people with disabilities. So, instead of someone attending a group home or therapy or assigned a full-time carer, in Victoria there is not enough money to fund this, and so those with impairment and mental health issues are instead required to endure the present system simply for lack of a better alternative. For this to change, I would suggest that justice reinvestment should be considered. This is where funds invested into prisons should be relocated to local programs that assist in identifying the basis of the most common issues for disabled and ill people. This would be issues such as domestic abuse, homelessness, drug and alcohol abuse, etc. So going right back to the very basis of their issues. Instead, Victorian authorities are contributing enormous sums of money to be spent on a new Victorian prison in Lara in order to keep up with increasing prison numbers. As Greens Corrections spokesperson Tin Reid asserts, crime prevention is cheaper than prison, and $1.8 billion would buy us a lot of crime prevention. Therefore, to address this problem, it would be extremely beneficial to investigate into and rehabilitate policing methods and the way protocol has taught them to handle certain situations. In other words, let's start improving people with disabilities' interaction with their first point of call when coming into contact with the criminal justice system, the police. And through justice reinvestment, we can fund more services to assist them while decreasing prison numbers at the same time. Often, lack of understanding and negative assumptions about disabled people result in professionals, including police, doing one of two things or both. They either don't understand that conversing with people with disabilities may require altered processes. For example, if they are deaf or if they are blind, they might need altered processes, or they might believe that they are simply incapable of legal processes and handling the criminal justice system processes and protocols. That is by the Australian Human Rights Commission. An example of this is the infamous case of teenager Tyler Cassidy. He is pictured on the slide. Cassidy was a 15-year-old who was described by his mental health case manager as demonstrating increasingly disturbed behaviour, angry outbursts and self-harm. Cassidy was also grieving his late father, who he idolised, and one night he was wielding 2 large knives and threatened the public. This was when he was approached by 4 police and was quickly fatally shot due to his aggressiveness and unpredictability. It is also important to note that this all occurred in under 2 minutes from when the police arrived at the scene, meaning that the police did little to actually subdue the teen and help him, as by the time they were there was less than 2 minutes, and that is not a lot of time, and the situation must have escalated quite quickly. Despite proclaiming the incident a clarion call to Victorian police due to their insufficient ability to help and calm down the teen, the coroner accepted the innocence of police involved in the grave circumstance. If anything, this judgment exhibits the way in which ableism, that is, discrimination in favour of able-bodied people, can be used to protect police against accountability for their actions. That is by the Rudderman Family Foundation 2016. It must also be acknowledged that there are many other reasons as to why disabled people have trouble with the police. Some of those may be fear of authority, fear of consequences, and lack of knowledge of rights. So, as it can be seen, the extent of trouble between the police and the disabled community is considerably large. Next, I will evaluate the existing policies Victoria Police have implemented to combat this miscommunication, and then move on to further strategies and approaches I believe could be applied in order to improve the relationship. Existing legislations and policies. So, one of the earliest investments made in an attempt to ensure a more positive experience for disabled people coming into contact with the police was the Disabilities Act 2006. On its website, it defines itself as providing a legislative framework for people with a disability which reaffirms and strengthens their rights, including objectives to promote and protect their rights, support accessibility to high quality services, and advance inclusion and their ability to participate in their local communities. Similarly, the Victorian Police Blue Paper, released in 2014, which aimed to improve police duties in general, recognised that the role of police has expanded and there is no clear guidance on where police activities should stop. So they are unsure of their role in the community as society evolves, and therefore has been published in an effort to further improve their mission to protect and vindicate the human rights of every citizen, and that would include, obviously, disabled people as well. Further, in June 2018, a report of guidelines entitled Responding to Allegations of Abuse Involving People with Disabilities was released for Victorian Police as well as disability service providers in order to better understand how to treat those who are handicapped. So, did all of these improve the relationship? Unfortunately, despite all of these efforts, there is still a largely negative review by disabled people and their carers when it comes to their contact with the Victorian Police. A recent study by the Victorian Equal Opportunity and Human Rights Commission has shown that individual experiences of the system are actually fully dependent on the individual police member with whom the victim has contact with first, and these police members often do not follow the best or necessary procedures and practices. This is because there are only minimal number of police officers who are specifically trained to manage people with disabilities, so the chance they will encounter one of these is quite low. So while it appears that there have been many initiatives created and implemented within the last decade that really do try to bridge the gap, their reach is obviously not as extensive as it should be in order to reach all members and avenues to have the desired effect. Through research into recent studies, I believe it is most obvious that the most important recommendation is institution-wide education and training on disabled people for police. This should include how disabilities can manifest, behavioural symptoms that go along with them, and how to best approach disabled people at the scene of an alleged crime or incident. To do this, collaboration between police, mental health providers, and those individuals and families affected by disabilities, with the aim of preventing violence, avoiding unnecessary arrests, and improving access to medical health services. That is by Vallis 2016. This would ensure that all police are well educated and are all provided specialist training, not just certain police, about the types of potential victims or perpetrators they could come across, and be fully informed on how to address them. This would decrease the amount of negative experiences. This has worked well in South Australia, where they have created a justice plan, including a requirement to undergo specialised training in assisting people with a disability, particularly so that officers do not fall back into bad habits, and also with the hopes that they can come up with recognised techniques for police when approaching individuals who are nonverbal. I think this is a great idea to have a goal such as this in mind, as it creates a sense of urgency to achieve a great outcome and to set an example for other police departments around Australia and potentially the globe. I believe that over time, the relationship between the Victoria Police and people with disabilities and mental health issues can be resolved and work more efficiently if there is a continual investment into the education of the police department. However, it is crucial that all involved are enthusiastic and willing to learn about disabilities and their challenges, as it can be seen that it only takes one reluctant individual for a handicapped person to have a negative experience with the criminal justice system. Thank you.